If you can do that, and I think that's what you need to do in every business, is bring value to whoever you're trying to sell to.
100%.
And if you can bring value, they're going to bring that value back to you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we just clicked record, and so Greg Clatterbuck, thanks for jumping on. Episode 4 of the Deal Ranch. So excited to get you on. We can talk about the inspection business. I want to talk about what deals you're interested in, certainly right now, and we just were talking about it a little bit. But before we get rolling, if you want to give a brief intro on yourself, I'll leave that to you, and then we can kind of start with your background and get into it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's kind of a long intro.
Perfect.
I started out, went to college, got a physics degree, ended up working for a building manufacturer, component manufacturer, truss design, house design, components. So I was a designer, did roof trusses, floor trusses, that whole deal. So a lot of background in the building industry, design, we did CAD work, that sort of thing. And then so I did that for a couple years, went to the fire department, and have been full-time firefighter ever since. But I continued doing the truss job until about 2008 when the economy, when we had the Great Recession. I got laid off, and I only had one full-time job, so I had to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And was literally watching HGTV one day and saw this guy doing a home inspection. I'm like, I can do that.
Wow.
So found a guy in my area that did them. Like, hey, can I come work for you?
Cool.
Just wanted a part-time job.
Yeah.
So I did
that. While firefighting still.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I've been doing that for the last 20 years.
Awesome.
So that's my full-time job off to the side.
Yep.
So yeah, I started working for this guy doing home inspections. And after a couple years, I just felt like I could do the business better. It was never my intent to have a business, but I just kind of started branching off. There's some things I wanted to do that I felt like would be more efficient, better. I mean, this was 2008, and he was still using pencil and paper.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Not even computerized reports.
Right.
And so I kind of started. I just ended up branching off, doing my own thing, and have had the inspection business since 2008. And a couple years ago, hired some guys. So now I've got myself, 3 other inspectors, and then my daughter doing marketing for the business.
Wow.
So hired 2 retired firefighters and one guy who's still on the job.
Oh, interesting. So what's the? I've got a million questions already, but what's the overlap? Because I know Brad, he did one of our inspections, and he's great. What is the overlap between firefighters and inspectors? How does that?
So all these guys, so Brad and the other guy that work for me, they used to be my boss in the fire department.
Oh,
and so they knew what I did, because every day I'd get off work, I'd go do inspections.
Got it.
And so they saw what I was doing, and when they retired, they're like, hey, can I come work for you?
Sure.
And I really was not looking to have employees. I'm like, yeah, it's just easier. I do it myself. I don't.
Right.
But I finally relented, hired some guys, and it worked out really well. So, and then the other guy, he's still on the job. He came to me and was like, hey, I see what you're doing. Wouldn't mind learning that, doing it.
Interesting.
And so the good thing about firefighters is we show up on time. Pretty professional.
I would say.
Pretty reliable. So that's the good thing about hiring firefighters.
Right.
And the flexible schedule, because with shift work, I keep a Google Calendar. The guys update their calendar, and I use a online CRM that manages everything. And so somebody can go in, schedule an inspection.
Very cool.
I don't have to touch everything.
Right.
And they just see the calendar and schedule when they want.
Interesting. Wow.
Yep.
So to rewind a little bit, as you learn from the trust company, which I think, especially in the development world and just buying existing deals too, gives you a huge leg up on a lot of people. Transitioning to the inspection business, working under someone, you always learn what you can learn how to do something. You can learn, hey, I don't want to do it that way too, which
Absolutely.
is a big leg up. So when you started, what was the true transition of? You said you had kind of taken a couple maybe inspection opportunities on your own, started doing it a little bit, but at some point you kind of realized, hey, I got to start Clatterbuck Inspections. Like, what was the thought process in, hey, I can really do this?
Well, and so what it was is I was working for the other guy. I developed the software template that we were using, and when I say developed, I mean it's a commercial program.
Yep.
But you just build your own template.
Of course, right.
So I had done that, kind of got him set up on that.
Sure.
And there were just things that I wanted to do that he wasn't either willing to do or capable of doing, and I started having people call me on my own. And I had to have my own LLC anyway because I was a 1099 contractor for him. So that was why I had to set up the business initially.
Right.
Because he was contracting to me. And I just kind of branched off, and I really ran my business and worked for him at the same time. We basically had an agreement that I'm going to kind of do my own thing, but anybody who is your customer,
I'm not going to poach.
I'm going to do the inspection under your business.
Okay.
And so, it was very mutual. It was very cordial.
Yeah.
And then he still calls me occasionally to help with some things. And, we still kind of help each other. So.
Sure. Very cool. So diving into the inspection business as a whole, I mentioned Brad did great, and I think we've used him 2 or 3 times, and we were going to use you guys on that 16-unit deal on Surfside that fell apart, which I'm a little salty about, but that's how the business goes.
That looked like a good deal.
It was a good deal, but they all are till you get them. So focusing on the inspection business, what asset classes do you guys cover? Obviously, we know you do multifamily and single family. What's the breakdown of both? How much do you do?
Pretty much anything residential.
Okay.
We do a little bit of commercial as far as the building, the structure, that sort of thing. We're just very careful because when you get into the commercial side, there's a lot of regulations as far as what is the occupancy use for this building.
Got it.
The ADA compliance, fire codes. So we don't get into any of that stuff, and I make that clear.
Sure.
To our clients that yes, we're just looking at the structural, electrical, mechanical components of the building.
Right.
None of the regulation side of things, because even in the fire department, we do fire inspections, and I'll call up the fire marshal and like, hey, I got a question.
Sure.
And I'm just looking for a simple yes or no answer, and he's like, well, I can't answer it. I got to go check the code. I got to go see when this was built. I got to see my simple question takes him 2 days to find an answer.
Right.
And so we're not getting into that aspect of commercial.
Yep.
Just the structural, mechanical side of things.
Yep. Interesting. As it relates maybe, and we can talk about single family too, but maybe more on the investment side here. So we're looking at a duplex or more. A guy or a girl is looking to buy the deal. What do you think is the biggest killer of purchases outside of roof or foundations, like kind of standard deal killers? What to you is like, oh man, this holds up a lot of deals, or this costs a lot of money, but a lot of people don't think about it either in their underwriting process or first time walking through. What do you think are the big things that can get in the way?
I don't know that there is one thing. I think people get hung up on not understanding the numbers.
Yeah.
because even on the owner occupied side of things, people ask me all the time, is this a good deal? Well, I can't answer that.
Sure.
What is the house worth? What are you going to have to put into it to make it livable or rentable? And, what are the returns? And so, you can buy a complete gut job that's a good deal.
Sure, of course.
You can buy, a house that's 100% ready to go, that's a bad deal. So I really think it comes down to understanding your numbers. If you need a new HVAC, say on the residential side, at least in my area, you're looking at minimum probably $8,000.
Sure.
Roof on a average house is probably $10,000.
Yeah.
And so I think just understanding the numbers and what is going to go into it is the biggest thing.
100%.
So if you understand the numbers, now you know the bottom line, and the numbers are going to tell you whether it's a good deal or not.
Right. And understanding the numbers from top to bottom is, to me, the most important thing. From a underwriting the deal of just kind of fixed expenses and income coming in, right? But you're saying it more from a renovation. Like, hey, this is going to cost money to repair. Is that what you mean by running?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, just understanding what expenses are going to go into it, and then understanding what are the returns. I did an inspection once for a, air quotes investor.
Oh boy.
Who was buying this house. And I was trying to stay on the inspection side of things and not put on my investor hat.
Right.
And, I found out they were buying it for an investment, and I asked them basic questions like, well, what's it going to rent for? And they didn't know. Like, then how do you even proceed if you have no idea what it's going to rent for?
Yeah.
So it was their first house. They had no clue. And, I'm just like, so I stayed on the inspection side of things, but, if you don't even understand what it's going to rent for, you don't know.
Right.
You can't work out your numbers and know if it's even going to pencil out or not.
It takes a lot of time for me, obviously, looking at 12 to 50-ish unit deals. It takes days, hours to underwrite a deal. You got to make 1,000 phone calls, and you got to call this insurance guy or this roof person, or go walk the site and then kind of look at 10 different comps of apartments nearby. What's the average price per square foot? There's a lot that goes into it, and I think from the outside looking in, and I am by no means, a super expert. I've just worked really hard at figuring out our deals to make sure there is no surprises when you do buy or spend a couple $1 million. That gets expensive, but I think real estate can kind of get this kind of compared to, let's say you go and you buy a mutual fund. You're like, oh, well, you're investing. It's passive. You still have to trust that asset manager, but for real estate, if you're trying to do this like passive, like you're saying in air quotes, approach, it can be dangerous if you don't know every single number going into it. Because you buy the deal and you're like, oh, it's passive, I'll just get a renter. It's not an investment as much as it is an entire business to me. Like everything about it's a business. It's not a passive
well, and
thing.
I would argue you need to treat everything like a business.
I agree with that too.
Personally, I'm more comfortable on the real estate side of things because I understand it.
Yeah.
I have investments in stocks.
Sure.
But I can't say that I I don't understand all of the intricate financials of the company.
Sure.
you
Which can be dangerous too, for the record.
2 weeks ago,
Okay, that's right.
2 weeks ago, Silicon Valley Bank was a good investment.
That's right.
Today,
maybe not so much.
You got nothing left.
That's right. Yeah. Interesting. So, when I look at you, and we know each other through Cindy, our property manager, and she's been fortunate enough to plug me in with your team for inspections, and then also just to meet you and pick your brain a little bit. But when I look at you or think about you, you have such a leg up on me and a competitive advantage, I think, from doing a walkthrough in a unit. I don't have the structural design experience, and I don't have any inspection experience, and I'm not a firefighter either. But what do you think you look for that most folks don't? I walk through a unit, 10-unit deal. You're going to do a walkthrough. What do you think you would look for? Yeah, I would say that most folks don't look for.
I would say I mean, the overall condition,
Yep.
the roof, I'm looking at the big ticket items.
Yep.
If you're looking at a multi-unit deal, how old is the HVAC?
Right.
Because if I'm looking at a 20-unit deal and all of the units are 20 years old,
Right.
I'm looking.
Well,
I'm
you got to
looking
pencil that in.
20 HVAC units at $6,000 to $8,000.
Right.
That adds up quick. Roof, how much longer does the roof have? Is it an older building that maybe has polybutylene piping, and we're going to have to replumb it?
Sure.
Just looking at the exterior, what's the condition of the exterior? Is it going to need painting? Do I have to? Are my decks rotted?
Right.
Just kind of the overall look. Really looking at the overall condition and just kind of, I've been doing inspections long enough that I look at a building and go, oh, I just walked around the outside and I see $50,000 worth of work.
Right.
So I just look at it, and that, to me, that translates to a number.
Well, that's kind of more of an artist component that you have. You've done it so much that you can almost feel the cost just by looking at something. Anyone that does something for a while can
Sure.
kind of do that, right? So, kind of in tandem with that question, one I had for you a couple weeks ago, is there ever, let's say you're looking at a new deal, based on the age of the home, are there any kind of features of how it's built that you would never buy, like older electrical that, and you know much more about this than I do, or older plumbing, like copper versus like Flexos? Are there any outdated kind of backbones to a property that you're like, I would never buy that because this always happens, or this always happens?
I wouldn't say
Or
never.
a crawl space, theoretically, down here.
I don't like crawl spaces,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
in this area,
Right.
down at the beach area, because everything is wet.
That's right.
Now, would I say never? No. Take a crawl space, for example. I looked at a property a couple years ago down here. There were duplexes that was on a crawl space.
Yeah.
I would anticipate going in and encapsulating that crawl space.
That's right. But that's not cheap.
It is not. So
That's
I'm
right.
going to figure that into my numbers.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's say the house has polybutylene plumbing. Depending on which version of polybutylene, because there are several different versions, some are better than others. Do I see a bunch of leaks or repairs?
Right.
If I don't see any repairs, we're probably okay.
Sure.
If I see a bunch of repairs, I've probably got more repairs coming. So then I'm going to have to look at repiping, the building.
Yeah.
So I would never say never, but I'm going to figure those costs in
Yeah.
to the deal.
Yeah. I agree. So, good background on the inspection business as a whole and kind of how you got started. Transition. How did you get started into buying deals? Like, what made you interested in buying your first property? When was it? What deal was it?
So that was pretty easy. It was 2009. I was doing an inspection. I was just happy being a firefighter, having a part-time job, doing
Yep.
home inspections. Doing this inspection on a townhouse back in Virginia where I live. And I was just talking to the guy. He told me what he was going to do with it. He was going to rent it out. And I said, oh, well, how much are you gonna get? And he told me it was like $1,200. And I knew what he was paying for it because that's on the MLS,
Yeah.
or roughly what he was paying for it. And it's probably like $120,000. And I'm doing some quick math, and well, that kind of works.
right.
And so I got to thinking about it, and I said, well, I can buy something, rent it out,
Yep.
and after 30 years, I'll own it. So that was my initial thought process.
Sure.
And so that's what I did. I took a HELOC out on my house, told the bank that I was getting divorced and needed a place to live.
Love it.
And so I only had to put 10% down.
Yeah.
And so bought my first property, and that was how I got started. And that was my mindset initially, was just to own something or have something that in 30 years I'll own.
Sure.
And then probably 5 years ago or so, probably the same thing that 90% of real estate investors do. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Kind of opened my
Right.
mind
Yeah.
and had a mind shift and had a much better understanding of how real estate works.
Right.
And so in the beginning, I bought my first property and I was just renting it out,
Yeah.
putting money aside, and every couple of years I'd have enough between my job,
Yeah.
and the rent coming in to have a down payment for another property.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Sure.
Had a couple that way, and then, then I started doing cash out refinances, refinance a property, go buy another one.
Right.
And so I was growing it that way. And then, then I had the mind shift of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and kind of looked at it more of a business and got more serious into it from
Sure.
that point.
And what did more serious mean? So from 2009 through what year were you just buying single family and just took one deal a year? Like what made it more serious?
I was basically, accumulating enough for a down payment, would buy another property.
Got
and
it.
then, I realized that 30-year mortgage is great, but I've never actually kept a mortgage that long.
Yeah.
So I would either sell the property or I'd refinance it.
Sure.
And then I really wanted to step up and get into multifamily. And I had bought a couple properties down here at the beach
Yep.
because I figured out that, one, property management pays for itself. I'm glad I did my own property management, but I'm glad I don't anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I bought properties down here because the numbers were better.
Sure.
And then
What about the numbers were better? More margin, higher rents? Like what do you mean?
The rent to price ratio was much better. You were, because back home in Virginia, it was starting to get expensive. When I first bought, you were close to that 1% number that everybody talks about.
Yep.
And then as prices increased, rent increased, but not at the same pace.
Sure.
So it just got harder to buy deals that would
Yeah.
cash flow.
Yeah.
And then, we'd come down here a couple times a year and kind of started looking at real estate, and it's like, well, man, this makes sense. And, so I started buying some deals down here. I
Right.
bought my first property down here 2018.
Which is a pretty good time to buy.
Yeah, I
considering
paid
that.
$118,000.
That's right.
For
Yeah. So your
for
rent's
a-
probably doubled
for a
since then.
3-2 that was
Yeah.
renting for $1,200.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's a hell of a deal.
it is.
Yeah.
And so I bought a few deals down here. Same thing, did some cash out refinances and,
Sweet.
and then I wanted to get into multifamily, and I found one in North Carolina outside of Asheville.
Oh, nice. How'd you find the deal?
LoopNet.
Nice.
Yep, LoopNet.
Which is usually, at least to me, in this market, where a lot of deals go to die, or if a broker can't get enough eyeballs on a deal, or if it's just really the seller wants too crazy of a price, they'll kind of go fish on there. So I'm curious how you made that deal work.
Well,
Because a lot of people see those deals.
I think I got lucky because this was in 2019 is when I was looking into the deal.
Wow.
We ended up closing in January of 20, so just before COVID.
Sure.
But it was a 7-unit townhouse complex.
Yeah. Okay. I know this deal. Yeah.
And there were 2 bedrooms, which I would never do a 2-bedroom, but that's what they were.
What do you mean? You would never do
I
a
think I would, for the construction
2-bedroom
cost,
units, you're saying?
yes.
Okay.
For the construction cost of a 2-bedroom, you can do a 3-bedroom
Got it.
for a little bit more,
Yep.
for much more rent.
So you bought this 7 units. It was 7 townhomes. How much did you buy it for?
I paid $870.
Okay.
And it was on 4 acres of land, and really the reason I liked it is it had pad sites for building more units.
Nice.
And it had initially been advertised at somewhere around 1.2, but it was self-managed. And the lady who owned it and was managing it was not doing a good job.
Interesting.
And that's why, I think that's why I got it for such a good deal, because it had such a, it was not performing well, but it was only 10 years old. And so I talked to interviewed a couple property managers down
Yeah.
there, and did some research, and I felt like we had a good chance of raising the rents and making the property much more profitable.
Right.
And I really liked this fact that I could build more units.
So the lady that owned it, you're saying they had put the pad in to build more?
Well, she
or
was
they
a
were
second
planning on
owner.
it? Okay.
She was a
got
second
it.
owner because the original developer built it in 2008.
Oh, no way. And it
During-
sat that long before
Well-
building new on the pad?
Nobody ever built those additional units until I bought
Wow.
it. So there were 7 more pad sites available.
Wow.
But because they built it in '08 and they were so far underwater, they kept it as long as they could.
Yep.
And then they sold it to the lady that I bought it from.
Sure.
And it just, she was managing it herself, not performing well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when I bought it, it was 7. And then I had the intention of building out those additional units.
That's awesome. So you bought it for 7, so 124 a door at 870. What were the original rents? Do you remember?
When I bought it, they were averaging about $964 a month.
And then what did you initially, when you're underwriting the deal, what are you like, hey, we can put a little money in and bring it up to
I
what?
was thinking we could be pretty close to 12
Nice. Okay.
a unit.
And then how realistic was that? Did you get 12 after you bought it?
Well, so we closed in January of 20, which was when COVID started.
Yeah, great time.
And it was awesome time. So it slowed, I think it slowed our raising the rents a little bit.
Sure.
Because of the rent moratorium. So
Which is smart to
right.
keep them where they
Yeah,
were.
because in North Carolina, as within most places, you couldn't evict for non-payment.
Right.
You could evict for breaching lease terms,
Yeah.
but you couldn't evict for non-payment. So as long as we had people paying, we didn't want to give them an excuse to not pay.
Sure.
So it slowed us down a little bit,
Yeah.
but it was still performing. And then as people would move out, we would raise the rent.
Yep.
And obviously everybody knows what happened during COVID. Rents took off, and
Yep.
even without COVID, I think we would have done, fine. That just slowed us down, and in the end, really helped us.
What are rents today in that deal?
On the original units, they're averaging probably around $1,350, because I still have some legacy tenants in there.
And they paid the increases, or are they still?
We
kinda
haven't
anchored
increased
towards-
them as much.
Okay.
The original 7 units, new leases are at $1,495.
Wow. And do you know what was the cost to build those?
The original ones I don't
No,
know.
the new ones.
Oh, the new
Yeah.
ones? So the ones that I built 6 units
Yeah.
that were 3 bedrooms instead
Cool.
of 2.
Cool.
So less units but more bedrooms. So and the construction cost was $185 a unit.
Nice.
And those units, I think we just rented one at $1,895
No way.
because those are 3 bedrooms. Yeah.
Sweet.
So I haven't done the math to figure out what that average is, but it's performing really
Between
well.
the two, like
Yeah.
1625, I guess. What do you know all in what the cash on cash return of that deal was, like to date, or if you don't know the answer to that, I guess.
I have not done the math on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No, because to be honest with you, I completed the construction in about February of last year. So February of 2022.
Oh wow. Okay.
And yeah, so we were doing construction during COVID.
Cool.
Everything is stabilized now, but we did have a few additional,
Yeah.
one-time cost that came up during the construction. Like we had about $8,000 in stormwater repairs that the state of North Carolina imposed that I was
Sure.
not, I hadn't expected that, but those are one-time
Right.
costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this year, 23, will really be the first year that it's completely stabilized.
Got it.
And it's doing really well, but I haven't run the actual numbers.
That'll be cool to see. So, in conjunction with that, what do you, and this can be this deal or we can talk about any deal, but what do you look for? You spoke about it earlier, knowing the numbers. Speak about knowing the numbers on your repair side during an inspection. And to me, I think knowing the numbers is the deal as a whole. What's my property tax going to be? What's the new insurance going to be? What's the interest rate? What's going to be? Maybe we get a draw from the bank. You have to know your numbers everywhere. What do you look for in a deal? How do you underwrite it? And then how do you tell if it's in your strike zone of, oh, hey, this checks our boxes. We want to put an offer on this or we want to buy this. Like, what is your process?
I would say I'm actually in transition right now.
Okay.
But prior to, say, 2022, I was really looking for something in a growing area. Which is why I typically look in, North and South Carolina, because that's where you've got a net in migration.
That's right.
And I know a lot of people talk about cash flow. Cash flow is king.
Sure.
I get it. But I have made way more money on appreciation than I have on cash flow.
Interesting.
I think that appreciation is going to start coming to an end, or at least be much more difficult to find.
For sure.
So when I was looking for deals that would cash flow, probably $300 to $400 a month at a minimum. And when I say cash flow, I mean, covering all the expenses,
Right,
assuming vacancy, assuming repairs, actually running your numbers.
Yep.
So they're gonna pay for themselves and they're gonna make a little bit of profit.
Yeah.
But I was really looking for things that were going to appreciate.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I've made way more money on appreciation than I have on that $400 a month cash flow.
Right.
I can take that property, own it a couple years, cash out, refinance,
buy
and then
another
go
deal.
put that money into something else.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think those deals are going to be much harder to find now. So what I am looking to do now is more something I can add value to.
Sure.
Not a complete gut job, but something I can go in and, paint carpet, countertops, appliances, kind of a light rehab.
Yeah.
And, do some forced appreciation.
Yeah. So just a standard kind of value add play.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's where you have to be these days.
I think that's where everyone wants to be these days. That's what we do. But I think it's very tough right now because I still think that's the place to be, though. However, but I think it's tough right now, especially in our market. So, like, we focus on Wilmington, we focus Horry County, and then we focus the 3 counties down by Charleston. But with cheap credit the last 4 or 5 years, and especially in these markets after COVID, like you mentioned, we had all these good numbers, good employment numbers, net new folks, job creation, and it's cheaper than the North. So everyone comes down. Well, everyone, in our business, they're not stupid. They're like, okay, we're all doing the same thing now. But with cheap money and people already had good processes in place, well, they kind of ran through the value add market where all the deals were acquired, and you're starting to see it now where people are kind of paying for it. People are trying to get out of deals, I'm starting to see. But they acquired the deals, got a draw from the bank, or maybe they just baked it in or they did it in cash, but they acquired a ton of properties, everyone kind of included. And then every deal now has LVP floor, stainless steel appliances, but that's most of them. So how many true value add deals where rents are still $600 a month, someone's owned it for 40 years, and you've got the wood paneling walls? Well, maybe not too many of them, right? And that makes it challenging too, I think.
It does. And those are...
But those are the gold. That's what everyone's looking for, right?
Those deals are hard to find. And I think, honestly, a lot of that comes into networking.
100%.
I've got a deal. Well, I say a deal.
Yep.
There's a property in the same area as my multifamily that I keep talking to my property manager about that I'm trying to. I would love to buy that property from the owner. It's.
Have you talked to the owner yet?
I haven't talked to the owner, but I've talked to the property manager because he manages both properties.
Oh, wonderful.
He manages my property and theirs.
Yeah.
And it's similar to my property, but for whatever reason, she doesn't want to raise rents. Their rents are, I talked to him the other day, and I think he told me their rents, they finally raised them to like 1095.
Oh, wonderful.
And-
$400 below. What
Yeah,
have.
you could
Yeah.
easily get, probably $1,300 a month.
Yeah.
So I keep working on him, trying to get her. She wants to keep it, pass it down to her kids, and so what I'm trying the approach of owner financing
Sure. Through the property manager.
through the
All
property
these
manager.
okay.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to her yet because I don't have the relationship with her, and I know she's had calls from other investors, and I don't
Yeah.
want to be that guy. So, I'm using him as the conduit,
yeah.
to get to her. I don't think she wants to sell, but I'm making the argument that you sell it to me for owner financing, you're going to get a check every month.
Sure.
And you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Well, there's sometimes we don't know what people really need, right? Oftentimes it's not just money, and it might not be interest income like this seller financing. It could be anything else, right? Maybe she looking for another deal. Maybe she's looking to get out altogether. It's hard to tell without knowing, but for me and what I do bulk of the time, like I'll pick up the phone. I love being that guy because I get to know, but people don't like selling assets and what you learn in this business to people they don't know. I think at outset, the idea of like cold calling and, hey, Joe Blow investor, would you sell me your property? I've certainly started doing, that's how I started doing it from my sales career. And then you kind of realize, hey, these are sentimental assets to people, right? Like this.
Sure.
Maybe her granddad built it. Maybe her dad built it.
Yeah,
It's
they
hard
want
for her
to
let
pass it
go.
on to the
That's
family
right.
for cash flow.
But sometimes the family doesn't want to inherit the asset either.
Correct.
So to me, taking the approach of just calling them and trying to get to meet them or go out to lunch, like the name of the podcast, The Deal Ranch, and we were talking about it earlier, you plant the seeds with the people and you don't know how long it's going to be till she's like, hey, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, I talked to my son, he doesn't want to sell it. And Greg, you've been, good to us, or you talked about this, or, you've been talking about buying this deal for so long, we're going to sell it to you. And I've heard some people do some pretty cool stuff. There's this guy in Wilmington. He's been good to me. He owns a ton up there. And he's telling me stories of properties that he's tried to buy that they wouldn't sell to him, like your scenario. But he owns a renovation business, and when his guys are on the road, he'll just send them out to, hey, keep an eye on that property, and he'll call them and say, hey, your grass is a little bit too long. Do you mind if my guys cut it for you? So he'll cut their grass of that property that he wants to buy. Or let's say a tree falls down. He's like, yeah, I put our tree guys in there to remove a couple trees that fell from the storm. You don't charge them anything. So there's all these different ways of, the business development side of real estate that I think are interesting, right?
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And this is what I figured out on the home inspection side of things.
That's a good way into a deal too, huh?
Yeah, because
Wow.
a couple years ago I joined a mastermind group, so I go hang out with smart people.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've learned, because in the inspection business, the person buying the house,
Yeah.
they're my client, but my customer is the real estate agent, because
Interesting.
that buyer is only going to buy one house.
Yeah.
That agent is going to sell a bunch of houses
Right.
and need my services.
Yeah.
So my marketing is to that agent. That is where 95% of my marketing goes.
I love that.
And it's all about building relationships. When we do office presentations to agents, I don't stand up there and tell them why we're so great. I try to offer them something.
Sure.
And how can I make their business better? And so the presentation that I've been doing in offices here recently is trying to explain to them why they should do a pre-listing inspection,
Right.
so that they can find any issues with the home and get it fixed before it hits the market,
Right.
and then it falls apart at closing. And then the other part of my presentation is talking about the tax advantages of owning investment real estate,
Sure.
and asking agents, explaining the difference to them what a real estate professional is
Right.
in the business world and what a real estate professional is according to the IRS.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the benefits you get from that. Because I see so many agents, they sell real estate, but they don't own real estate
A lot of them don't.
or
yeah.
don't have the benefits of real estate. So I'm, that is my presentation to them. So I'm trying to offer, bring some value to them. And I think if you can do that, and I think that's what you need to do in every business, is bring value to whoever you're trying to sell to.
100%.
And if you can bring value, they're going to bring that value back to you.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, I completely agree. For me, for any business, value creation, I think, is what ultimately leads to the monetary return, right? I didn't actually know about this. So do you do lighter investor courses, or do you invite agents in? Like, how do you get in front of them? What were you just bringing up there?
So we go to, agents typically have an office meeting about once a month. And so we'll go and we'll sponsor that meeting. We'll bring them lunch, we'll bring them snacks or whatever. Sometimes we'll get an hour to do a presentation. Sometimes it's just an introduction.
Yeah.
But, so the value that we're bringing to them is sometimes Chick-fil-A.
Right.
Sometimes it's, the presentation about how you can save money on taxes.
Interesting.
It just, every office is different. Yeah. So it depends on, how long they want me to present. I can't give them a tax presentation in 10 minutes.
Sure.
But I can
not a good one at least.
Right.
Yeah.
I can bring them some Chick-fil-A.
That's right.
And some cool pens, because everybody loves pens. And then I'm on their mind the next time they need an inspection.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing is when I talk about, because I'm a real estate investor and have a home inspection business, agents really like that.
Yeah.
So when I tell them about the investing side and the tax side of things, they feel like they're getting more value for their client when they do a home inspection.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of value you can provide an agent in the investor space as well, because this is not a blanket statement, obviously, but for a lot of good real estate agents, let's say they're exceptional at what they do and they're good at selling single family homes, that's an emotional sale. It's a different sale, right? When it comes to, let's say that agent wants to cross over and start to sell duplexes, or they sold kind of like maybe when you started. You bought an original home and then you did a secondary home. You're like, I want to invest. I think for some agents it's a challenge because they don't understand how to underwrite the deal or returns or, money in versus money out. How much you're going to put in. Are you going to get a return on, changing these appliances to stainless steel? So I think for you, that's another big value, let alone the inspection business. But a lot of agents, at least that I've talked to, I think that can be your value to them. It's like, hey, here's my underwriting spreadsheet. If you want to use it, go for it. If you have any questions, I'll help you out. But that's a nice leg up that you can provide people too.
Yeah, I just, I like real estate. I do home inspections. I'm a real estate investor. So I can talk about real estate with anybody. And so I do that a lot. But I've actually made the argument to agents, because they're 1099 employees, that they could actually own investment real estate that doesn't cash flow.
Yeah.
Technically, they're losing money, but come out ahead on taxes because of the amount of taxes they pay.
Right.
So they could, by doing accelerated depreciation, which I know is phasing out, starting to phase out this year, but they could do accelerated depreciation because they qualify as a real estate professional on the tax standards, and with the amount of money that they're going to depreciate can offset their taxes from their real estate income, from their sales side, and actually come out ahead even though they're technically losing money on the property.
Right. And now, collecting equity in the deal.
That's not what I would I wouldn't say go look for a deal you're going to lose money, but it's a unique situation that they can be in.
Yeah. In wrapping up, last couple questions here, and I appreciate it so far. This has been super interesting. So, what are you looking into next? Right, it could be asset class. What do you want to put money into? Obviously, you're talking about acquiring that deal nearby. So this could be geography. Also, you can talk about where we're at in the market as a whole. But what are you interested in next, as far as the next deal?
So what I'm working on now is I am actually working with myself and an agent that I know back in Virginia.
Yep.
We are starting a syndication business. So
Beautiful.
we are gonna get into the syndication side of things.
Yeah.
We're going to a conference next month in Dallas for syndication. So that's what we're starting to work on now. We're already reaching out to potential investors,
Sweet.
letting them know what we're doing. So I don't know if that's the natural progression or not, but eventually you run out of your own money. So
100%. Well, you can make other people money too.
100%, yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people out there that have money, but don't understand the real estate market. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had, even in the fire department, I've had so many people come up to me and be like, "Hey, can you help me do a deal?" Or, "Hey, if I give you
Sure.
money."
Of course.
So that's what we're looking into now, is trying to do a syndication. So we'd like to get at least one deal done this year on the syndication side.
How big? Do you have like any targets on returns or what size unit or what's purchase price? What do you think?
We're going to probably start out small and try to do a couple $1 million raise.
Yeah.
Because really I think when you get into lending, standards have drastically changed. Rates have gone up. You used to be able to go 80% LTV. I think now you're probably maxing out at 65% LTV.
Yeah, depending on the deal, yeah.
65,
70.
So, you're going to have to bring a lot more capital to the deal.
100%.
So, with interest rates being where they are, the returns aren't what people promised a couple years ago.
No.
And I think you're going to start to find some multifamily deals hitting the market because a number of folks either have bridge loans or
That's right.
loans that are maturing, and they're going to have to refinance that debt.
Yeah,
And
double the rate.
when they underwrote at 3% and now it's 6%, and you bought in at a 3.5 cap,
Yeah.
you're not going to refinance without doing a capital call.
Sure.
And I just think you're going to start to see some deals hit the market.
I agree. And a lot of people are kind of playing chicken with those deals. Like you can kind of play tough on the front end right now. Let's say, and I've looked at a bunch of deals recently because I'll go through and just pull their mortgage docs and you can see, okay, who lent the money, and I'll look up that lender and I'm like, okay, well, they only do bridge loans. And then you can see if it's adjustable rate. And a couple of these deals, one I was working on recently, may have mentioned this on the last episode, but their interest rate variable went up to 12%. They have a huge portfolio, all on bridge loans. Their deals, when the new insurance policy comes due, especially in our area, like we were talking about before, the insurance on each deal is probably going to be double what it is. So these deals are underwater, and they're going to be in a lot of, the temperature is going to get hot, so to speak, for a good bit of people. And if you didn't underwrite your deal, not necessarily conservatively, but I would say well, or if you underwrote it really skinny, let's say a lot of these syndicators, a lot of people got into the space because it was kind of easy to make money.
It was easy money a couple
environment.
years
That's
ago.
right.
Anybody and their brother could be a syndicator.
Yeah, but now I think for anyone to make money in the apartment business or any larger scale real estate business, you got to be really good. Like there's not much room anymore for whether you don't have capital or you don't understand the numbers or you can't get enough lead volume. It's a hard business, and I think only a few people are going to kind of really excel compared to anyone can make money in a bull market like we saw. So it's a different environment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not shooting fish in a barrel like it was.
No, for sure. Well, I think that's a good stopping point. Was there anything else we didn't touch on that you wanted to?
No, I think that was good. Appreciate you having me. And
yeah, how can people find you? So you do inspections in Virginia, South Carolina, where else?
Mostly in Virginia, and then down here at the beach area in Myrtle Beach. So we're ClatterbuckInspections.com, so you can find us on the business side there. Facebook, Clatterbuck Inspections. We have an Instagram. I honestly don't even know what the name of that is because I pay somebody to do that. I hate social media. I know we have to do it,
Sure.
but yeah, so Facebook and our website.
And then if anyone wants to talk about syndication or be potentially an investor and work with you guys, or if you're local in Virginia, I'm sure you would want to get together with them too.
Yeah, reach out to us. Our phone number's on our website, and our Instagram is Clatterbuck Home.
Awesome. Perfect. Greg, thanks for jumping on. We can
Thank
wrap
you.
it there.